Hey everybody, my name is Mark Javier and I'm the founder of Plants Without Borders. We're the wholesale platform for importing plants. And today we're going to be going over demystifying the import process. So this is going to be the first video in a series of content that we're going to make. And the objective is to make the importing process easier and easy to understand. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing who are the involved parties with importing plants, what documents are required to make the process go smoothly, and also a high-level overview of the steps in the import and export process. So let's take an example scenario. There's a buyer in San Jose, and there's a seller in Bogor, Indonesia. And the buyer and seller found each other on a Facebook trading group, and the buyer and seller agreed to a price and a quantity for a specific product. In this case, it's 20 Anthurium magnificums. And they decided to ship the products into the United States using air cargo, a customs broker, and UPS for last mile delivery. Now, why would they decide to do this versus UPS or just DHL by itself? Well, UPS and DHL are really designed for general cargo, like t-shirts. They're not designed for specialty goods that are time sensitive and perishable, like ornamental plants. So while it could work, it's not the most reliable and consistent solution. So here are the two main parties in the transaction. There's the buyer in San Jose who committed to buying these plants, and the seller in Bogor who committed to selling the plants. Now, the buyer is also going to be acting as the importer of record, and that's basically a designation that says, hey, Customs and Border Protection, I'm the one importing these plants. Everything is my responsibility. I'm going to make sure that duties and taxes are calculated correctly. I'm going to ensure that everything that's being included in the shipment is allowed to be shipped into the United States. And I'm going to take measures to record, keep accurate records of everything that I'm importing into the US. And the seller is going to be the business or person in Indonesia that's committing to the buyer that, hey, these are the plants that we're going to be delivering to you. But in addition to these transaction principles, the main participants of the transaction, there's a lot of other entities that are involved in order for it to go smoothly. And I'm going to go over them one by one. So first, there's the buyer and then the seller. But a lot of the times, the seller isn't the one actually growing the plants. So there's an actual farmer in Indonesia who's planting the plants on their land and then growing them. And then the seller is basically a intermediary or broker who's understanding what plants are available, giving the buyer a price, and then entering in a contract to sell the plants to that buyer at that specific price and quantity. And in addition to the seller and the grower or the farmer, there's also a company called the exporter of record. So this is the Indonesian company that has all of the permits and legal infrastructure that's required to export plants and then also manage the whole documentation process. So they can go to the Indonesian Quarantine Authority, get a phytosanitary. They're responsible for making the export process easier. So on the export side, there could be three entities already: the seller, the grower, and then the exporter of record. But there's also the Indonesian Quarantine Authority, and this is basically a government bureaucracy or a government agency that is responsible for inspecting the plants and then producing what's called a phytosanitary certificate. So that's a document that says, hey, these plants don't have any pests on them, there's no diseases, they're ready to be shipped out of the country and to another country. There's also the air cargo agent. So this is a intermediary that reserves space on the actual plane itself. So it's basically like a travel agent, but they only book space on the plane, basically. And then you have the actual airline. So United Airlines, for example, the company that operates the actual plane itself where the cargo is going to be stored. Now, when the plants are imported into the United States, there's also U.S. Customs and Border Protection. That's the government agency of the United States that says, hey, you need to pay taxes on these imports. Here's the rules as to what you can import. And basically, they're responsible for ensuring that no contraband gets into the United States, and then also collecting the duties on all the goods that are imported. Now, the USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspector Service is a division of the USDA that inspects the plants upon arrival in the United States and then says, hey, these don't have any pests on them. They're good to be shipped elsewhere in the country. Now, you might ask yourself, well, if there's already a phytosanitary certificate that says there's no pests, why does it need to get inspected again? Well, that's a really good question. Basically, a lot of the times, phytosanitary certificates, or well, products that have been issued a phytosanitary certificate will still have pests in them, and that causes a lot of issues for agriculture in the United States, and also creates a lot of issues for the buyer and seller. So next, we have the customs broker. This is an entity that manages the process of filing documentation with Customs and Border Protection. And you basically need them to file what's called an entry summary, which will be covered in the next slide. You'll also need a bonded trucking provider. So this is a company that will be able to transport the goods upon arrival in the United States to the inspection facility, and they need what's called a bond. Basically, it's a way to ensure that the duties will be collected on goods. So the bonded trucking provider has the ability to transport cargo that's been imported into the United States, but the duties yet haven't been paid. So not anyone can do this. Also, the last mile courier is like a UPS or DHL, FedEx. They're the one that's going to be delivering your plants from the airport area to wherever you are in the United States. So as you can see, even though the buyer and the seller are the two main entities in the transaction, you still have to be aware of all of these different entities and what their role is, what they need, and how to basically make sure everything goes smoothly by coordinating all of these entities. So here's a list of the required documents. There's 4 main documents that you'll need. Well, 5. One, you'll need an import permit. So this is a permit that you need to have before you can even start importing. But once you have an order that's being sent into the United States, you'll need to provide a commercial invoice. This is the invoice that lists the products that are being sold. The phytosanitary certificate. This is produced by the Plant Protection Agency of the exporting country. The packing list, which is a list of everything that's in a specific shipment. If there's multiple boxes, that needs to be clearly listed in the packing list. Also, the airway bill, which is basically almost like a boarding pass or a ticket for your cargo going onto the plane. It is a confirmation that you have space on the plane, and it lists the dimensions of your shipment. Next, the green and yellow label is a special label that comes with your USDA import permit, and it needs to be attached to the outside of the box. And it has the address of the plant inspection station listed on it. You'll also need a last mile delivery label, and this is a UPS or FedEx label that the bonded trucking provider will attach to the outside of your box so that your box will get delivered to where you are in the United States. And lastly is the entry summary. So this is the document that's being filed with Customs and Border Protection each time a shipment is imported into the United States. The customs broker is going to be responsible for submitting the document, but at the end of the day, if you can see this column right here, the importer of record is responsible for everything. And they're responsible for making sure every piece of information on all of these documents is matched. It matches exactly. So now that you know what entities are involved and what documents you should be aware of and what documents are, one second, and what documents are going to be expected to be produced and submitted, here's an overview of the process. So step one is the order origination. Okay, the buyer and seller, they're going to negotiate, they're going to close a deal, and an invoice is going to get generated. All right, now it's time to begin the export process. Okay, so first, the plants need to be inspected by the Plant Protection Agency of the exporting country. They're going to produce a phytosanitary certificate, and then you'll also need to reserve space on a plane using an air cargo agent. So once you have the phytosanitary certificate and then space on the plane and a departure date, you can then begin the harvesting, the washing, and the packing process, because the plants will need to be washed of all soil before being imported. Okay, now once all of the steps have been completed, the box is going to be dropped off at the airport. But make sure that the green and yellow labels on it. But once that's done, you drop it off at the airport, and then the airline is going to ship it from that airport, Jakarta, let's say, to LAX. Okay, what happens then? All right, now it arrives at LAX, and the airline is going to transport it to their storage facility at the airport. This is basically like a baggage claim, but for cargo. Now, the plants will be stored there until your customs broker has an appointment with the USDA to inspect the plants. And in order for your customs broker to schedule an appointment with the USDA, you need to have all these documents in place. So once the customs broker sets up the appointment, now that customs broker in the trucking agency that they're using, a lot of the times the customs broker and the trucking company will be bundled into one service and provided by one company. So that company will then transport the plants from the warehouse to the plant inspection station for inspection. But actually, even before this, the customs broker needs to submit the entry summary with Customs and Border Protection in order, well, basically that's going to calculate the duties, and it's going to have a list. They're going to need the FIDO, the packing list, the airway bill. All the shipment documents need to be submitted by the customs broker to Customs and Border Protection. And also separately, the customs broker will need to set up an appointment with the USDA. Okay, so now entry summary has been submitted by customs broker and the appointment has been scheduled with USDA. Now the trucking company is going to transport the plants from the warehouse to the plant inspection station. And then the inspectors are going to look in the box. They're going to inspect all the plants. And if there's any problems, any pests, you're going to receive what's called an emergency action notification. So this is a document that says these plants have an issue and you need to resolve it by either fumigating the plants, putting them in a gas chamber, or destroying the plants. This means just burning them or destroying them. And you're going to need to pay for this if you're the importer of record. But let's say nothing goes wrong, the plants are clean, there's no issues. Now the plants are cleared from customs. All right, now the trucking company can drop your product or drop your goods off at the last mile delivery drop-off location, let's say a FedEx facility near LAX. And then after that, FedEx will drop it off to you in the United States, wherever you are. That's the last mile process. So we went over these 4 steps, how the orders get originated, what is the process that needs to be completed to export the plants, what happens once the plants arrive in the United States, and how do they get cleared through customs, and then step 4, how does it get delivered to you? So there's a lot of information here, and we're going to be putting articles on our website and basically tutorials and creating sort of a knowledge base for buyers, sellers, and importers and exporters. But yeah, this is the first piece of content that we're going to make in this series. So if you have any feedback or any specific topics that you'd like us to cover, please let us know. And we're going to be having our first webinar this Friday, and we hope to see you there. So again, my name's Mark Javier. I'm the founder of Plants Without Borders. Thanks for your time today, and we look forward to connecting with you.